Hello. Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? Hello? I'm trying to turn on my microphone, so I don't know if it's being picked up right now. Hello? Just hold. Hello. I'm attempting to... Okay, I think it's working. Nice, nice, nice. Alright. So, how is... I'm just gonna talk to... I don't know, keep myself awake as well. It's nice to see some people on the stream. It's, if you can see the little clock on the lower left side, that's AM. So I'll let you guys guess what time it is. So to viewers that are present, welcome. Thank you for joining me. So let's, if you guys are interested to talk about anything, I'd love to hear your thoughts and see where our dialogue gets us. Just hold on to me, 'cause I'm a little unsteady, a little unsteady. Hold on to me, 'cause I'm a little unsteady, little unsteady. I'm here, approach, here, down, and I'm alone. This house don't feel like home, but if you love me, don't let go. So this is the last character that I have to do for this commission. So this is a commission piece. So this started last year, but I had a lot on my plate, and I've only just been able to really dive in and give a lot of effort. Just around when did I restart this again? Around May, I think. But I still had some other projects involved. Yeah, but I'm glad that I'm back here now. Any Warhammer fans out there? Feel free to just drop your comments. So my goal for tonight is to fully render this in black and white, because the colors are already ready, as some of you may have seen from the other layers. I just need to get the black and white rendition finished out, and so that I could transport this to the final overall painting, because this is honestly one of the largest paintings that I've ever done, and so I am giving it my attention, my utmost attention. I'm a fan of Warhammer, but I admit that I may just be considered a casual by a lot of people because I don't know much. I think it's Siama Pedersen's Starties that got me into Warhammer, and I know that's quite late, and that's really probably newbie figures for a lot of individuals out there. But I'm glad that I'm aware of it. I mean, I have been aware of it for such a long time. It's just that I don't think I've ever gone to really paying attention to it back then. But I guess times have changed, and well, I'm drawing Warhammer right now. I wonder what time it is to everybody who's watching the stream. Excuse me. So what I have to do is to paint the fabric. fabric's already ready. All I just have to do is to ensure that I deselect parts that I shouldn't touch. And once that selection is prepared, I have to expand the selection just a tiny bit so that the brush encompasses even the areas that what's the term for that have the outline, because I don't think we would like to have spaces in our colors. So clothes fabric can be tricky, especially if you're not really sure what you're doing. But in this case, the good thing is I have reference. My client has provided sufficient reference. And the goal when it comes to fabric is to assess it as though it's really just pipes. And so you have sections that are pushing forward into the camera, and then you have sections that are pushing away into the camera. And then, of course, if two sections come on top of the other, then the one that's closest to the light will be brightest, and then the one underneath the other will receive some form of shadowing. Okay? So in this case, we can mark this as a point of shadow right here. So we can interpret this as though this is bulging out like this. We could do that. There you go. See? We could already envision the fabric just by adding those lines. Or we could approach it in a much subtler way, in which we have the piping around here and then stops right there before it goes into a line right here. So if it ends up doing that, we need to have the darker parts situated only around this area right here, and then have the rest of it be in the tones of grays instead of blacks, like so. There you go. So as you can see, the variation in shadows already creates a slight protrusion in the fabric. There. And then the more forward into the camera it is, then the greater the angle in which light is being received and shadows are being casted. So in this case, we have this top section, which is a little flatter, and then we have this section, which is a little more pointed. And so this part becomes sandwiched even further. Therefore, we darken those areas like that. If you guys have any art questions, any questions, bits of curiosity, anything, just feel free to drop them while I'm working. I'd love to have people to chat with, since we already have several with us, I would say. So same thing here. So if you notice that there are some issues with your line work, just paint over it, like so. But we still, but if you're confident with the results of your fabric, then it would be best to maintain it as much as you can. There you go. unsteady. Let me just get some coffee. Just hold on to me, 'cause I'm a little unsteady, a little unsteady. So what we want to do here is add a tiny bit of shadowing around the areas that are touched by the rope. We want to have a very light effect of cast shadow to show that these are in fact part of each other. Not part of each other, one on top of the other, I mean. Thing is, we don't have to be, this doesn't have to be fully rendered, just enough for readability, because but I'd like to include all of you here, viewers, we still need to color this. And so I just like to have these as kind of like my guides, and honestly, it makes me more confident with the final product when the values are correct. Because sometimes your colors can be spot on, but if your values are not that good, the dimensionality of your illustration is going to be very off. And that's honestly key to creating a believable illustration. So that's why when you're studying how to draw, it's best to prioritize your values. But of course, before that, your structures also need to be as spot on as can be. For example, if you can't draw a proper cube in a 3D space, if you can't prepare a rectangle in a 3D space, or a cylinder, then you might have a much more difficult time in adding light to those surfaces and allowing for them to interact with each other. So truly, it really comes down to the fundamentals. You can render as much as you want. You can render for hours, and you can even zoom into your piece, but then once you start to zoom out, if your fundamentals are skewed and are off, it's not really gonna, the longevity of your piece isn't going to truly stand out, and it's going to look quite amateur. Maybe your style can make up for it, that's possible, some artists get to do that, but that's more a miracle than anything. So before and after. Just hold on to me, 'cause I'm a little unsteady, little unsteady. So as you all may notice, I am just putting black. My color picker is on the blackest of all blacks that Photoshop can provide. And whenever I do return it to whites, for example, like this, I'm actually holding the tilde key, the key to the left of your number 1 on your keyboard. It effectively flips my stylus pen and then erases that section for me. And so I can end up with a layer that's rendered with transparency, so that I could later put down colors, for example, like this. There you go. So right away, we can end up with a shaded rendition with all the colors that it requires. Okay, so now that it's almost done, why don't we deselect everything, expand our canvas so that we have more interesting things to surround us. So this is the last character that I have to work on. So if you guys can read the layers panel that I have, it says final. But then we have this little guy right here. We have this guy right here. We have this guy as well. It's like having toys, honestly. When you get to render something out, it's like you have toys, truly. You can just move them around as you want. So these will be the characters of the commission, and I won't show just yet what it looks like in its final version. But we will get there. Cause I'm a little what I like to do when I'm a little confused with how the shading is happening. In order to refresh my eyes, I flip my canvas. And what has happened to my selection? My character has moved. He's not supposed to move. Let's put him back. Make him return to his position. Some parts got deselected. Just there you go. That's much better. So what we want to do is select that, deselect that, and that, and that, and that. What else? Oh, gold, of course. And then after we've deselected, we expand the selection again so that we have finer control. Then we turn that off so that we could go back to painting the fabrics. So how do we make this a little more real? Thank you, One Apollo. May the Emperor bless you as well. So what we want to do... How did your message not show up? My God. So to make fabric look a little more real, what we want to do is add diagonal shapes to it. Especially if, for example, like for a piece of fabric like this, which is like a loincloth, or I don't know, or a tunic, loincloth tunic. Anybody in the chat correct me if I'm committing heresy right now. But the point is, what we want to do is to show that it's not all ironed out, especially for a piece like this, in which the characters, which later on we will see, they have done quite a bit of battling. And another thing is, it's not just floating. The fabric's not just floating. For example, in this part, you see this knee piece over here? It's elevated a little bit because of its protrusion. So what we want to do is we have to demonstrate that three-dimensionality despite having the straight lines. It simply means that it's pushing forward into the screen and then pushing backwards as well. So these are things that we have to consider. As well, the fabric is also going a little bit in a slight direction. Oh, what does that mean? It's pushing a little bit forward the further we go to the left. And so that means that we need to have some slight shadowing and obstruction from the left to the right, like so. For example, here, we have to cover that up, and then here too, that, and then there as well. Now we just have to commit to it and then be consistent, like so. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. So this is actually a how manyth attempt at completing this commission, because as much as I don't want to admit, art blocks still afflict me, and it's something that I truly wish that I could run away from, but I guess that's part of the curse of being an artist. And so this would have been finished far earlier as a commission, but I had other more urgent pieces to finish, and I'm very grateful for my client for this. So he has entrusted many artworks to me, and I think this is the largest piece that we've worked on together. And I'm honestly proud to have it be Warhammer. Personally want to know more about the lore, especially with how expansive it is. There you go. So as you can see, things are starting to take shape. Even with the smaller nuggets like this, I'd like to have as much detail as I can. There you go. Because I personally want my pieces to endure time, and I want anybody who looks at it to be able to see as much detail. Because oftentimes when we look at a picture and we're like, oh, that's cool, and then we move on. A lot of illustrations have that effect. And what I've found is that I would like my pieces to go in the opposite direction. Kind of like if anybody here in the chat reads manga, if you have ever read Berserk, it's absolutely one of my favorites. And you could just sit down and stare at the illustrations, and you'd find so many little different things, because that's just how the late Kentaro Miura-san really gave his all into the crafting of those illustrations. And I hope that in my own unique way, I get to do that as well. And of course, I want to execute it with my own personal pieces, and as importantly, pieces that are entrusted to me by my clients. And so all of the techniques that are in my pocket, I apply. And I spare no such detail as much as I can. Of course, I can miss one or two things, a few here and there, but it's not, I always ensure that it's not out of laziness. It's more of out of, well, I just missed it. Or it's already visible enough. Because as much as you want to render everything, you still have to leave room for a little abstraction, and I think that's what separates illustrations from photography or even 3D rendering. The fact that not everything has to be rendered, but it still ends up being quite readable. And I think that is the beauty of art. So essentially right now, all I'm doing is just separating black and white. And then we end up having something that looks like a seal. And then all that needs to be done is, of course, figure out where to put the whites and where to put the blacks. And I'm not talking about race here. I'm sure that somebody might have clipped that. I hope nobody does. Razty Company 95, welcome, welcome. Oh, thank you. I appreciate your comment. I hope that the final product is much more than what this currently is. So I think we are almost done with the black and white. I'm honestly quite proud with how this is turning out. Because previously, I had to pause a lot of times because I would start to go painting and then, well, I wouldn't be satisfied. Like, my artistic instinct would just bite me and then would tell me that something is wrong, so restart it. And I had to restart the artwork several times, and I realized that I really needed to go through the most important parts, which are the fundamentals. Especially for such a large project as this, I need to have the proper foundations. And when I say foundations, not just the artistic foundations, but also the framing, the composition, where the light is going to be. And so this is what they will look like right now. And I hope that we have the magic like so. There you go. So what we have to do, okay, wait, let me correct that. I don't like how that turned out. What I have to do is copy the group of colors and then move it below so that I can still manually adjust it as need be. So right here, our reds are a little too dark. I mean, when I say reds, the skin color that he has, the paint job that he has. Ceramite. Am I getting that right? Please shoot me if I'm saying the wrong things. There you go. That's much better. And then of course for the dark spots, when I say dark spots, these ones, we want it to be slightly brighter. Similarly for the gold. There you go. Alright, so that completes all the 6 characters. Alright. I'm pretty satisfied. And what I have to do is, of course, provide a breakdown of how this is done. Okay, so first we have, of course, the line work, most important part of the illustration. There you go, the line work. took me a while to get the fidelity of this because to anybody who's attempted to draw a space marine, their proportions aren't necessarily human. Like their arms are slightly bigger. Their torsos are slightly bigger and all these things. And so positioning the fist to do that gesture was just, it was a pain, I would say. It was quite difficult to manage, but I'm glad that I was able to do so, to find the right approach. So now we have the colors completed. Now we head back to what we call the assembly. What do I mean by that? I would like to demonstrate for you guys what I mean by that. You'll see in a bit. Just hold on to me, 'cause I'm a little unsteady. So we have all of these characters, right? All presented differently. So they're just floating there. Doesn't really make sense. Well, soon it will, when you guys see this. This is what I have been working towards. There you go. So we have to move this character and then place him in the spot in which he belongs, like so. There you go. And he's standing atop a hillside, so don't worry about that. We're gonna put stuff over there. So as you can see, the bodies are not yet placed accordingly. But this is what they originally look like. There you go. That is them. So that is before, and this is after. Before, after. Before, so what I have to do now is to start painting. This is the last, and I think this is going to be faster, I would say. I'd like to think so. Just hold on to me. Hello? Okay, I'm just going to take a quick bathroom break. I'll leave the illustration available for everybody's observation. I'm a little unsteady. Okay, I am back. Oh, let's get to the bottom of this. So what we want to do, we have our main characters set up. And what I'd like to do is, there you go. We had a brightness contrast filter at the top there. And I think this is what it originally looks like. So that's, that is such a huge departure, I would say. Yes. And this is the original. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a version 2 for this so that we could still maintain those original files. I like to have a look back at how things were before and then how things become afterwards. I've always loved doing that. So in this case, I have the original sketches and I have the final versions, and now I can delete those original sketches because I'm already in a new file. There you go. So this is old. What is this? There you go. And I could delete everything that I don't need. All the currently turned off layers have to go because it eats up a lot of file size. There you go. So what we can do is we could actually compress all of this into one final master. Oops, my bad. There you go. And then we could just squish everything down to size. There you go. So we have the original version. There you go. I think we could increase the opacity of this so that we still have that previous. There you go. I hope you guys can see the difference between these two states. So here, I'm going to stop using pencil brushes because that's what I've been using the entire time earlier. And I'm going to shift to the more expressive painterly brushes. They're a little harder to use, heavier to use, but they get the job done extremely well. So in this case, I'm going to, I forget which brush that I use. Should be the one that, where is it? Define. Where is it? There you go. That's better. Okay. So what we want to do is create these separations between the dead characters. This is supposed to be the end of a battle. There you go. And since we have our main characters here at the front, what we can do is start painting over them, because we want to blend them all together with the illustration. So in this case, we should have let me check. There should be a guy here. And I can be not too careful with this, honestly. Remove this sucker there. Select this part as well, because we want that to blockade the feet of our character, like so. there's a lot of feet hiding that we have to do, honestly. For example, here, this section has to cover this section. They're not too obvious, but they're required. For example, here too. Because we want our character to be on top of a hillside. But it ends up blocking everything else. I think this is something that we have to integrate either inside, or we just subtract pieces accordingly. So for example, here we have, I'm going to color code the folders again. Sky we could color green, and then the second guy we could color red, this guy we could color orange, this guy we could color violet, this guy we could color red, yeah, and then this guy we colored blue. Have to move this gun piece underneath Dark Star, right? No, underneath. There you go. So we have to, or at least I have to, recall what the original looks like as an ever-present guide. There you go. Already have it. So it has to be a little brighter than most. This is where it can get a little tricky. So we have to cover this leg as well. Where is it? It's up. Right here. approach this in several different ways. I think we have to take out the heroes from the main folder. Yeah. Yeah, that's something we have to do. So we could approach this layer by layer. Okay, so starting with him. As per the details, so their enemy here is the Night Lord's warband. So we're just gonna scatter these fuckers all over. So the goal for these is to always, well, grab references. Right now what I'm doing is, it's just not visible, but I'm getting references all over. So they're pretty much just space marines. And correct me if I'm wrong here. Hello, Jonathan. So I'm getting references from all over. They look more like demonic space marines. Demon marines. I might be saying again something heretical, so feel free to brandish your weapons in front of me if I'm saying the wrong things again. So what I want to do, I kind of want to, so this is the tricky part with large pieces like this. I already have the background available, and I already have my Space Marines available. I don't know to what extent I'll be covering them up, because they're all on separate layers and varying levels of three-dimensionality. So I think what I want to do is instead just turn on all of the important blocks. So this is the problem-solving part of digital illustration, pretty much illustration in general, is you have to kind of figure out how things fall on top of each other. So, for example, right now we have an entire a rendered sky, pretty much, and I don't want to cover those sections because they're quite important already. So what we want to do is isolate the floor as opposed to the sky. We already have the heroes isolated. That's the part that I've already toiled upon, and so without any further ado, I will select the floor. I don't have to be overly specific with this because this is a large section of the map, for a lack of a better term. I just have to make sure I select enough. And then this is what we come and detail. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna prioritize the floor accordingly. And again, I want to base this still after my original approved sketch, which is this. So I think we could reference this a lot because this is what I originally sent to my client. So I think this is what we can use as our target baseline. And we could turn it off every now and then to compare what the difference is, and I think we have a finer cutaway with this. So as you can see, there is a noticeable fall off between the horizon section, or the mountains in the horizon, and the front area. So we're going to be giving this a slight cinematic lighting, similar to this. Notice how the front section is a little brighter than most, and this is something that I would like to very much replicate, because the concept is that there's lightning. So there, what I do is I just simply copy it, and then we lock this section so that we could paint it, and then, well, that's exactly what we do. I think what I can do first is adjust the brightness. There you go. So now that something's a little brighter, it's going to be much harder to hide details. Again, if anybody has questions, please feel free. So what I like to do is I like to reference paintings, actually. Because they help me with figuring out abstractions. Instead of painting every single rock and soil, I could skip past that and then end up rendering so I think a good example for this is John Martin's Pandemonium. Yeah, I think this is a good piece to reference here. There you go. Notice how not everything is completely detailed, but you have a fantastic read of the piece. And this is the kind of effect that I want to bring about. Although there's great reversal here because it's mostly dark parts, and then it's like he brings out the bright parts with the lava. And so what we have to do is use kind of like flash photography, but with lightning instead. I wonder what pieces I could pull from. I think John Martin is a very good example of this. I love his work. Here's another example. There you go. Look how beautiful that is. Okay. So here we go. So let's take it one step at a time. I wonder what films I could reference, because those are things that I also gravitate to. Let's see, let's see, let's see. Anybody has ever seen the film Hostiles, I haven't seen it, but I've already downloaded it. I think the proper lighting. Again, I don't want to spend too much time here. The selection process will still be covered by the overall painting, so I really don't want to bother too much with specificity. Just good enough to isolate the meat from the dirt. And I think that I will be approaching this in black and white again. So this one too. So this is separate part. There you go. So now, oh, wait, again. I think we should feather this to 5. And then just, yeah, I think this is good. Fields and everything. I just got the light on it. But I don't need to check everything. So what we want is a variation of thin and thick. But we don't want to make it too obvious that we're just repeating patterns. So what we want to do is craft another set. So the closer something is to the camera, the taller it becomes in terms of perspective. But the further back it goes, the thinner it gets because of the skewing of perspective. Set of textures. And then we duplicate that, flip it again. Once we're finished, it's not going to be too noticeable, especially once you still create variations for rock form. For example, these become too evident, so we don't want that. Before we combine things, I'd like to duplicate that. pattern base is much larger now. And then we could now play around with scattering it all over. Flipping it once again, changing the thickness and the thinness. So now we have a larger base to play around with. There you go. Right. So we have our base map of our rocks. And what we have to do is create variations in the bumps per se, which is going to take some more manual painting. For example, like that. Shadows first. Something similar to this particular scene from Hostiles. Here. There you go. As you can see, I'm just reverse engineering the effects of that. And it's raining. So this is pretty much just pattern searching. We're here to find rocks that seem to look better if they're hidden in how's my volume? God damn. How about that? Is that better? Hello, hello, hello. This is part of the painting process where I kind of just end up turning my mind off. And this is where I play podcasts and just zone out until the tedious part of the job is done. But I think I need to choose a better brush for this. There you go. It's technically the same brush, just sharper and deeper. There you go. There you go. Because the opposite of this is to create bright spots.